shall rise again. Sometime when you feel in despair, just know that God is still standing there. Say, we shall overcome someday.
Chicago, we're live all across the nation. Listen, those of you that are watching, text somebody, tweet somebody. We are excited. The election was on Tuesday. We're going in a different direction. We're excited that Will Calloway is here. He's running. And so listen, tell somebody that the push is on as we push for change, push for freedom, push for another. Let me hear you make some noise, push.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Somebody sing it with me. We shall overcome. Let it ring out that we shall overcome. Someday, oh, deep in my heart, yeah, I believe that we shall overcome someday.
Us, we're glad that you're with us another Saturday. Can we make some noise for the fact that we're still here, we're alive, we're well? And so those of you watching all across the world, welcome. We have friends with us from London, Africa. We have our satellite cities with us in Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Silicon Valley, and those of you in Detroit. And so we want you to just stay tuned as we share with you the importance of Bloody Sunday this Sunday down in Selma.
Come on, let's get up. We have a right to be in this court. This program belongs to all your citizens of the county. We have a right to be here and will not in any way be interfering with the pursuit of traffic.
Be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly. You are to disperse. You are ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church. This march will not continue. Troopers here, advance toward the group. See that they disperse.
Can we celebrate the legacy of those that made the sacrifice on that Bloody Sunday, walking across that bridge, pressing on? And so our very own Reverend Jackson, let him feel our love and support is down in Selma today as we continue to organize and as we continue to celebrate. We also remember Dr. Conrad Worrell, who's being celebrated in Selma on today as well. We want to say happy birthday to none other than Jesse Jackson Jr. on March 7th. On the 7th of March, he's celebrating his birthday, and we want to celebrate his life. Also, if you have not gotten a copy of this great piece of work, you should. Letters to My Son in Prison, loving you, thinking of you, and never forget to pray. Letters, poems, great insight from none other than Miss Jacqueline Jackson, Jesse Jr.'s mother. It's a great book, and on Thursday here in Chicago, we had an amazing dialogue, conversation, and book signing, and so we want you to pick up that piece of work. It's a great piece of literature that will be life-changing and inspiring. And so again, happy birthday to none other than Jesse Jackson Jr. On on tomorrow morning, we want you to tune in to Keep Hope Alive Radio. You can tune in online at keephopealiveradio.org, or you can go to iHeart app and download the app. Tomorrow from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, Reverend Jackson to be on the radio. All of those across the world, you can listen because there's a lot of dialogue, especially after our election on Tuesday here in Chicago. For the first time in history, a black woman will lead the city as the mayor. Come on, can we celebrate that? Can we celebrate all of the women? It's women, come on, it's Women History Month. And so we thank God for the life and the legacy of so many women. And so again, tomorrow tune in to Keep Hope Alive Radio, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Also, you all, we need your help. We are sending bus loads, 2 of them to be exact. We're sending 2 bus loads of young people on a college tour, April the 13th through the 20th. Now, you can support. Our young people need financial support. Oftentimes, it is the case that Rainbow Push Excel does so much for our young people, but we need your support to make sure that those young people have a great time and get on the bus. It would be a sad thing, especially in the midst of these budget cuts, that we have to say to a young person, you cannot go. So that's why we need your support. 773-256-2775 is the number. Call and donate to make sure a child gets on the bus. And we're going to hear a lot about what's going on with Push Excel later in our broadcast with Dr. Wilson, and also our education update with Dr. Whitaker. We want to send our prayers to a host of families. We're praying for AT&T's Vice President Tonya Lombard and the loss of her mother. We are praying for Congressman Bobby Rush and his family and the loss of his mother-in-law. We are praying for Nathaniel Taylor, a.k.a. Rollo from Sanford and Son. We're praying for his family as he has made his transition. Gwen Jordan, or the loss of her cousin John Lewis of Detroit, Michigan. And we're sending get wells until we are able to see this baby go home. 1-year-old, the John Irvin, who was shot in the head. We're believing God for miracles, signs, and wonders. Come on, y'all. We believe in God for miracles, signs, and wonders. And we're praying for a great anchor of our organization, Sinclair Booker and Al Evans. Both of those great men have worked for so many years, and they're hanging in there. And so we're praying for their strength and their restoration. And last but not least, we're praying for Indra Noah. She has been inducted into the Amazon board. She is a former CEO of PepsiCo. Women, once again, making big moves. And so we're grateful for that. I want you all to sit tight and watch our video as we look at Push This Week in Review.
Here is the SMF Weekly Update. Against the backdrop of Reverend Jackson leading an Oscar protest for racism in the film industry, with a coalition of leaders from community groups and entertainment industry guilds in 1996, the work of Cheryl Boone Isaacs and April Rain creating #OscarsSoWhite. We wrapped up Black History Month with a Big Bang Theory. We applaud the 91st Academy Award winners. Black Panther on becoming the first and most awarded Marvel movie to win an Oscar with Best Original Score. Mahershala Ali on winning his second Best Supporting Actor Oscar. Peter Ramsey becomes the first African-American director to win Best Animated Feature Film category for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And they finally did Do the Right Thing. Shelton Spike Lee, whose Oscar journey started at Morehouse and Clark, Atlanta, won for Best Adapted Screenplay for BlacKkKlansman. And let us not forget the women in honor of Black history and Women's History Month. Ruth Carter becomes the first African-American woman to win costume design for Black Panther, and she's also a Hampton University grad. Hannah Beachler becomes the first African-American to be nominated and win the production design category and the first woman to serve as a production designer in a Marvel film for Black Panther. And God leaned in her direction. Regina King, the 3-time Emmy and Golden Globe winner and the 8th Black actress to win Best Supporting Actress for If Beale Street Could Talk. Next, during the Chicago Symphony Center in School Choirs concert series,
The King has a dream. I have a dream.
Our very own Reverend Jackson was invited to speak during Black History Month. Reverend Jackson provided historical context during the McCormick Theological Seminary's conversation with Otis Moss III on the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, then was awarded the C.F. Stratford Award from Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox. To further honor Women's History Month, we shined the spotlight on mother, role model, civil rights veteran, and women's advocate, Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson, who this week signed copies of her book, Loving You, Thinking of You, Don't Forget to Pray, and who had this to say.
Once you finish praying, once you finish being troubled, leave it alone and let God, make room for God to impact what you prayed for.
Congratulations to another woman in history, Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, on being presented with the African American Community Treasures Award during our 20th annual Black History Month celebration held in the Richard J. Daley Center. The women still rise as Chicago is poised to elect the first African American female mayor. And in Washington,
point of oversight is for us to pursue the trust, to pursue the truth and justice for the American people.
The freshman congresswomen displayed just why they were elected.
Mr. Cohen, I want to ask you about your assertion that the president may have improperly devalued his assets to avoid paying taxes.
And here's a kicker. Toni Harris becomes the first woman non-kicker football player to sign a letter of intent in college football history. Read and share Reverend Jackson's Sun-Times column, Our Democracy Depends on a Free and Fair Vote. Join the movement. Join Rainbow Push.
It's been a busy week here. And again, we celebrate also today a young man who's in the runoff. He's not done yet. Could you put your hands together for Will Calloway, who's running in the 5th Ward? Yeah, he has a long way to go, but he can get there. And so listen, y'all, we have a great choir. This choir has been singing inspirational music down through the years. And so I want you all to turn up your TV for the Rainbow Push Chorale as they come.
Come on, put your hands together, everybody. Come on, let me see you clap your hands. Anybody love to praise the Lord? Come on. I love to praise him. Come on. I love to praise him, yeah. Come on. I love to praise him. Come on. Oh, I love. Hey, one more time. I love to praise him, yeah. I love to praise his name. I love to praise him. I love to praise his name. I love to praise him, yeah. I love to praise come on. Oh, I love to praise yeah. Come on, say, for he is my rock. He's my rock. My rock. Come on, can I get a witness? He's my wheel. He's my wheel. In the middle of the wheel. I know you'll never. Come on. He's just a joy. That oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I love praise his name. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I really love. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I love praise his name. Oh, I love to praise. Yes. Oh, he's my rock. He's my rock. Yeah. Let me see you clap your hands. He's my wheel. He's my wheel. In the middle of the wheel. I know he'll never. God's never. He's just a joy. He's just a joy. That oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I love praise. Come on. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I love praise. Anybody love hallelujah? Hallelujah. I love praise his name. Oh, I love. Come on. Oh, I love. Down in my soul. Down in my heart. I love.
Listen, you all, we love to celebrate here, and we're grateful for our friends from Manchester University, all the way from Manchester, Indiana. And next week, you all, we have the Francis Marion Gospel Choir that's going to be here with us on our broadcast, and it's all about education. And so now we are excited to hear from a woman who's no stranger, Dr. Sonia Whitaker. She's Associate Superintendent of Schools in Harvey District 152 and the newly appointed Deputy Superintendent of Schools in Dalton Riverdale School District 148. Come on, Push, make her feel comfortable as she comes.
Good morning, good morning. I'd like to thank Reverend Jackson as well as Reverend Jeanette for the opportunity, but I'd also like to acknowledge my current all 7 Board of Education members from Harvey School District 152. You know, Board of Education members don't get paid to do the work that they do, so let's thank them, as well as my newly appointed Board of Education, Dalton Riverdale 148. So today's education update is centered around a question that was recently posed to me. And being that I'm an educator with over 25 years of experience, I have to be honest, I was kind of taken back when someone asked me this question, but I guess it's a good one. You want to know what the question is? Doc, how is it possible that a child can graduate from high school and still not be literate? Ouch. And after that conversation started, it actually moved to a more specific question, and it was just rephrased a little bit. And that question was, how is it possible, for the sake of this conversation, that a music entertainer can progress from kindergarten through grade 12 in the same school district and still not know how to read and write? How is that possible? Especially when research supports the line of thinking that if a child is not reading at or above grade level, by the time he or she reaches 3rd grade, that child is highly likely to struggle throughout his or her entire academic career. I'd like to digress for just one moment. As a national speaker, I know for a fact that when I'm presenting a message, that the audience fades in and out approximately 15 times every 60 seconds. So if you have faded out, I need you to fade back for just 30 seconds so that I might answer that question. It is possible. It is possible when society and the media and we use terms like failing schools. What do we mean by failing schools? Schools don't fail. Are we referring to the brick and mortar? Are we referring to the walls? Are we referring to the teachers in the system? Society and individuals in the most key and critical roles within various institutions are the ones that fail to do a good job of providing our most vulnerable students with equitable access to the financial, technological, intellectual, and human resources that they need to be successful. But don't just take my word for it. For example, a new research report provided by EdVild, which is an advocacy organization that pushes for equitable spending, indicates just recently, this literally dropped about 6 days ago, that the United States spends $23 billion more on white school districts than in non-white school districts. And it is for this reason alone that I'm asking educators from across the entire world to do away with the use of the term academic achievement gap. Wow, Doc, you want us to do away with the use of the term academic achievement gap? Absolutely. The academic achievement gap is the term that is used to refer to the difference in the academic performance levels of students of color and students non-blacks or non-Hispanic or students that do not have multiple languages that they speak in the home. Why am I asking you to do this? Because when we use the term academic achievement gap out of context, we allow people from outside of the education profession to believe that educators alone are the reason that the gap exists, and I reject this line of thinking. The reality is that everyone from all facets of society bears some level of responsibility for ensuring the academic, social, and emotional well-being of the students that we serve. So where am I suggesting that we're going with this in closing? I am suggesting that we use a term coined by Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings, and she refers to it as the education debt. The education debt is an accumulation of societal ills that have negatively impacted children, More specifically, it is important to understand that the difference in the performance levels of students of color and their peers is a direct result of an accumulation of negative factors such as unemployment, poverty, low literacy, marginalization, and the underfunding of schools, which has plagued vulnerable communities that our students attend. Educators cannot go at this alone. Lastly, I closed last week with suggesting that if we are not at the table, we will be on the menu. I am so happy to share with you that one of our very own, Dr. Donna Simpson-Link, is at the table. Something historical happened in Springfield this past week, and I'm so grateful to have been there to see it. As educators, we've pushed that at the Illinois State Board of Education level, that we have someone that is an actual educator on the board. They rejected it in Springfield for 2 years in a row. In just November, they accepted it in Springfield. It is now law that an educator has to be on the Illinois State Board of Education. And you guys, I sat and I watched while my colleague, Dr. Donna Simpson-Link, became the first educator in the history of the Illinois State Board of Education. When I left her, she was appointed to the board. By the time I got to my next meeting, I was informed that she became the vice chair of the Illinois State Board of Education. As Reverend Jackson would say, keep hope alive. We can do it. Keep supporting PUSH. Keep coming to PUSH, and keep giving and believing in the people that stand behind this microphone, because we are getting a seat at the table. And I'd like to close with a message that I tweeted this week. There are really only 3 types of people that exist in this world. There are people that make it happen, there are people that watch it happen, and there are people that say, "Ooh, what just happened?"
This year's theme is talking about the 400th year of Africans in the America, 1619 to 2019. It's in 1711, African Americans were still being bought and sold on Wall Street. Now we're talking about the new opportunities, the new forecast that we should have on inclusion, our economics, our right to ownership.
400 years matters. So we didn't come in the same boat, and we're still not in the same boat.
Being literally stolen from the only continent in the world from which all people have descended. And Brother Ron, the sooner white folk admit they're Africans, the better the world's gonna be.
When one asks, why should the government be involved in any effort to level the playing field and to close the wealth gap, is because the government helped create it. We have to advance the public policy and solutions we want them to vote for, support, and undertake.
What we need to think about is like a race 2.0 mentality. This is the human race going into 2.0. And the digital economy is going to be the economy 2.0. So we can fight it, we can question it, we can circle around it, or we can dive in in a way where I'd love to see, Black Facebook. I'd like to see Hispanic Google.
Well, where you stand on your procurement budget relative to our access to you as a business partner?
Sure. So one of the things we're very proud of is we're part of the $1 billion club in terms of diverse suppliers across our business. We do roughly about $2 billion a year of business with diverse suppliers, 3,200 small and diverse suppliers across the board. And we impact roughly about $5.1 billion worth of spend as a result of that. And we're sustaining, we estimate through our analysis, about 32,000 jobs as a result of this initiative. And we're not going to stop there.
We want responsible companies like Uber, where the algorithm is essentially the boss of these drivers, to come to our community and not redline us. We want Airbnbs to rent to us, not deny us because they see our face on the profile. We want judges to not use an algorithm that is based on data that primarily incarcerates people of color, which then leaves us incarcerated longer or detained longer or denied fair bail.
We wonder why there are predatory for-profit universities. We wonder why we have the foreclosure crisis. When you start telling people, get up off the couch, do something about your life, but you don't have the resources to do something about your life, you just leave them vulnerable and for exploitation from a capitalist system. And that's a problem. That's pernicious. We want people to have agency and dignity in their lives, so we need to provide the enabling goods and services so that they can have agency in their lives.
So when you talk about revolution, it's about bringing morality back into markets and saying, you have this gap. And I totally agree with Derek, and I've said this, it's not going to take 228 years it could never happen. Or it could happen tomorrow. That closing the wealth gap, because, like he said, it's not neutral. You create it through the legal structure and through the political structure.
I love problems, but I love how the ingenuity of Africans have already created the solutions. And instead of us standing on the outside saying, well, there's problems there's problems right here in the U.S. There's problems right around the corner. But in terms of an entrepreneurial and something that you may be passionate in, find a sector, create a relationship, and then let's go.
This then means that a rainbow can only be formed from the power of the sun and the storm. President Nelson Mandela calls Africa and her people a rainbow nation.
Me receiving an award from an icon like the Reverend Jackson just does not feel right. Because it's in his shadow and on his shoulders that I stand, and I'm forever grateful. So this too will sit on my desk and will be part of my motivation to continue to fight both in the corporate boardroom and in the streets and do my part to make sure that we reach the economic equality that we're all fighting for.
And Rainbow Push likes to take pride in the fact, or what we think is a fact, that we are one of the first civil rights organizations to begin this discussion and to explore the opportunities that African Americans and minorities have with blockchain and cryptocurrency.
So it's all about discipline, it's all about faith, and it's all about doing what you believe. But I never work for money. I tell people all the time, I make money, but I don't work for money. You got to do what you love.
And the only way to break poverty is corporate responsibility and accountability. Just to walk around acting like we just need y'all to feel sorry for us is half of the economic message. So the real assignment and the real test he gave Reverend Jackson on how we deal with corporate accountability and how we deal with the fact that the wealthy has continued to increase.
Do you want to get well or not? And that's the issue for us African Americans as we assemble with this Wall Street project. Do we want to be well, or do we want to just wait till we get a grant? Do we want to wait till somebody decides to help us? We can help ourselves on some of these things, and one of them is right now. Look, what Reverend Jackson, we got 55 members, black folk in Congress, and in major positions to make things happen and to stop things from happening.
In the boardroom, sometimes the most important thing you can do is to ask a good question, to extract the kind of information you need from the management team to give you as much knowledge and insight as you can possibly gather about the business and how it's running.
We have got to link arms and aims. People of African ancestry and our allies, we've got to stand together with an agenda and be intentional about moving that forward. And until we do that, nothing is going to change. So it's on us.
I know you're not going to announce tonight, but give us a sense of whether or not that's something you're seriously considering.
You are living up to the highest journalistic traditions of just trying to mind my own business, walk off the stage, and he caught me. I just want to say everyone has to make their own decision in their own time, with their family, with their heart, but in the interest of furthering the dialogue in this country, the very same things we were talking about a moment ago, I will be visiting the people of Iowa on Saturday. That's all I want to say.
One of the things I've talked to the banks about is I want you to create a millennial project. I want you to tell me how you're going to stop treating millennials the way you've treated us traditionally when you looked at our backgrounds and our credit records and how many jobs we've had and decided whether or not we were stable or not. I have the gavel, and I intend to use it.
We want
to give Reverend Jackson and the team that convened us in Wall Street this year a round of applause. Once we were sold, and now we are managing finances. We are head of the Banking and Financial Services Committee for the United States Congress. Reverend Jackson convened all of the stakeholders at Wall Street, and if you want to get a copy of this Wall Street conference, you need to call us right now, 773-256-2775. This week, we want to congratulate Dr. Glenda Glover, who is the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She took the initiative to convene the members of the Pan-Hellenic Council, not just to have a meeting and a gathering or a step show, but she led the way in raising money to support our historic black colleges and universities. Alpha Kappa Alpha alone this week convened 33 colleges and universities in Chicago to start an endowment program, giving each school, each HBCU and PBI $50,000. I'm so glad to be a member of Alpha Kappa Sorority Incorporated. Bennett College has been struggling to stay alive, and so many of the Pan-Hellenic Council members, many African-American business persons and others gave donations and raised in 2 months $10 million to help Bennett keep its accreditation and to remain afloat. We thank God for all of them and give them a round of applause. Quickly, those of you watch us every week and you say you love to hear Jonathan and you're excited about the information that he always provides, we need your support. It's Women's History Month, and when I think about women like Reverend Willie Taplin Barrow, affectionately called the Little Warrior, who was marching and organizing consumer clubs, when I think about a woman that started a prison ministry long before others were ever involved, Jessie Ma Houston, and when I think about Reverend Mother Consuela York, when I think about Reverend Addie Wyatt leading in the labor movement, when I think about Barbara Sizemore and Dr. Barbara Sizemore in education, when I think about Ida B. Wells, a journalist, when I think about Shirley Chisholm in the United States Congress, when I think about Barbara Proctor in advertising, when I think about FloJo in sports, when I think about Althea Gibson in sports, when I think about Nesta Prothro, when she was negotiating deals and financial deals and handling business at Florida A&M, when I think about all those women, I'm asking women, it's not enough to just say it's Women's History Month. I want you to show some kind of sign of your investment in the movement. We're asking 500 or more women, but 500 women to join PUSH today, this month, during the month of March. Show your support for an organization that fights for you. People say, well, what do I get when I join? You get somebody that's going to fight on issues, keep you informed, keep you inspired, and keep going when you're asleep at night. We're fighting for you. Jonathan is traveling all around the world, he and Reverend Jackson, fighting for human rights, going around the country, raising the issues, raising the concerns. You have to support this movement. Women, we've always led the way. I need every woman that is watching this broadcast, I need you to join right now. Call us 773-256-2775. It's only $35, $15 if you're 65 and older. Call us, or you can go on the website. Join today. We want 500 women by the end of this month so we can say to Reverend Jackson, women led the way. I don't know what the men are going to do. I'm just saying, join for your mama. Join for your grandmother. Join for these women who have paved the way. If you have done nothing, you can join today. Also, Reverend Hall said, we're going to the HBCUs. Yes, we are, but we want to we have 75 girls who've already signed up. They want to go. You need to send them. Alumni associations. We're going to your school. We're going to Florida A&M. If you're a Florida A&M alumni, then send us some money to send some students to your school. If you're a graduate of TSU, Tennessee State, you need to send some money to fund a child to go register and enroll and see your school. If you're from Clark, Atlanta, if you're from Morehouse, if you're from Spelman, you ought to want to support somebody going to your school. We'll put your name on the bus if you pay for 5 children to go. If you are from Kentucky State University and you want people to go to your school, you keep people saying, stop at my campus. You need to help fuel our way as we go. You're not going to get on the bus. You're not going to ride 8 days, 7 nights, but you can support us. Alumni, I need you to meet us here next week. If you want to support the Historic Black College Tour, April 13th through the 20th, meet us here. Panhellenic, all of you, most of you graduated from an HBCU or you sent your child to an HBCU. I need you to help us go to the HBCUs and to see the Historic Lynching Museum. I don't have any more time. I've got to go. Thank you so much. We have a young woman who is one of our Push Excel scholars. She's one of our orators. Reverend Hall, would you come and introduce our young oratorical scholar? The oratorical program is one of the most phenomenal programs that we have at Push Excel. Your child can join and be a part of this.
Yes, it's all about our children. This young lady comes to us. She's in 4th grade. She's at the Calumet Christian School. I want everybody to make her feel so comfortable. Liana Jenkins, she is an amazing young lady. And then after her, you're going to hear another great voice, our spokesman, Jonathan Luther Jackson.
Good morning, Rainbow Push. I am Leilani Jenkins, and today I will be reciting Harriet Tubman by Eloise Greenfield. Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff. Wasn't scared of nothing neither. Didn't come into this world to be no slave. And wasn't gonna stay one either. Farewell, she sang to her friends one night. She was mighty sad to leave 'em, but she ran away that dark, hot night. Ran looking for her freedom. She ran to the woods, she ran through the woods, with the slave catchers right behind her. And she kept on going till she got to the north, where those mean men couldn't find her. 19 times she went back south to save 300 others. 19 times she ran looking for her freedom. Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff. Wasn't scared of nothing neither. Didn't come into this world to be no slave. And didn't stay one either. And didn't stay one either. Thank you, Rainbow Push, for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Well, as I said, you all, we are grateful today that just like the Father sends the Son, we're grateful today for the son of Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson. He's no stranger to the broadcast. He doesn't fill in when his father's away, but he's with us when he's not traveling across the world. I want everybody to put your hands together and turn up your TV for Jonathan Luther Jackson.
Thank you, Brother Will Hall. Was she just absolutely phenomenal? Give her another loving, wonderful round of applause. And one last note on Sister Harriet Tubman. She said she could have freed so many more that were enslaved if only they realized they had been enslaved. I want to say congratulations. We've had the first round of a very hard-fought election here in the city of Chicago. I am so proud of all of the candidates that came out. It takes a lot of effort to show yourself, to make yourself vulnerable, to have lived in a life in a manner where your entire history record can be discussed. And now we have the choice. Any which way this race goes, the people of Chicago win. We have two candidates of our choice. But I want to add one other note to that, because I like to put things in a historical perspective so we can figure out what time it is. And right here in the state of Illinois, we're going to be the bellwether, the canary in the mine. As we go, the nation goes. We have a lieutenant governor, African-American female, in the Honorable Juliana Stratton. We have the Honorable Lauren Underwood, a new congresswoman. We have the Honorable Kimberly Lightfoot, Illinois Senate Majority Leader. We've got the Honorable Carrie Steele, the President of the Cook County Water Reclamation District. We have the Honorable Gordon Booth, the Illinois Deputy House Majority Leader. We have the Honorable Toya Hutchinson, the President of the National Conference of State Legislators. We've got the Honorable Kim Fox, the District Attorney for the Cook County of Illinois. We've got the Honorable Tony Preckwinkle, the Cook County Board President, the largest county in the state of Illinois. We have the Honorable Lori Lightfoot, the leading vote getter for the mayor's race for the city of Chicago. Women and African American are winning across the state of Illinois. My God. Now it's time for us to use the power that we've got. And I want men of good conscience and good faith to man up, step up, and stand behind these strong women. We've got ourselves into a terrible mess, and it wasn't women that were leading. Give them a chance to try to figure this mess out that's been created. Did you see the congressional hearings this week of Mr. Cohen? I just have to call him a convicted liar. There is going to be some truth that comes out of his mouth, Reverend Patterson. But if a black man were sitting there, they wouldn't let you forget that he's a convicted liar. And all of a sudden, all the things that were racist and despicable, now they bother him before he goes to jail. Mr. Cohen, go sit down, please. The other point I want to make, it was 1968 when the Honorable Shirley Chisholm won for a congressional seat, the first African-American woman in the Congress. She won in 68. She was sworn in 1969. Thank God it's 50 years later, and these women are rising to power. This is a year of jubilee. This is a year of celebration. Women are rising up to their rightful place. And when you see Mrs. Rashida Tlaib, a new congresswoman from the state of Michigan, call Mr. Meadows, the congressman, who made jokes about President Obama ought to go back to Kenya. When this man gets all these mayonnaise tears in his eyes and he's crying because he's called the racist, putrid act that he's done, and then he says, I've got family members of color. Mrs. Tlaib, I apologize to you because you should not have to apologize to him. She told the truth on him. Now, on to my point and message for the day. I want to talk about one more bridge to cross. One more bridge to cross. It's that season again where my father, the Reverend Jackson, and John Lewis, and Andrew Young, and so many others cross ceremonially the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama. I have to ask the question, should we forget about that bridge? Wasn't that bridge a long time ago? Before there was Facebook, texting, Twittering, before we could email one another, there's this old bridge down in Alabama. Does it mean anything to us today? Why do the civil rights veterans and the martyrs and the hero go back to Selma every year, in season and out of season? What do I mean by in season and out of season? Well, the in season is when it's election time. The in season is when the politicians come to pick our cotton, to pick our votes, to try to run in front of a black crowd. When it's in season, the politicians come. Their elbows are so sharp, the veteran civil rights leaders can't even get to the front of the line because the politicians come. to smile before the cameras, to recount what they've read in Wikipedia and say, I remember when Negroes and coloreds could not have the right to vote. And they say it with such earnestness. They almost get teared in the eyes. They talk about my history, but then you never see them again. But the old veteran, the old soldiers, those that pick up the cross and the bloodstained banner, something in their soul, in their consciousness. They remember a Jimmy Lee Jackson, a young child that stood in front of his grandmother that got killed. They don't forget. We need our elected officials, but we need our elected officials to represent us, not be appointed to us and never forget us. As we go back to Selma, and as I was a child, it bothered me to leave here on some Saturdays and not to go play basketball and spend time with my friends, to have to jump in a car and drive down, or have to take those long plane rides to go through Atlanta and Dallas to connect, to try to get back to Montgomery and to see all the old veterans. And I'm wondering, like, why am I in this room with all these old people? But now as I get older, I can see Reverend Orange, and he's gone. I can see Miss Boynton, and she's gone. I can see the family and the descendants of Jimmy Lee Jackson, and they're dying off and they're gone. I see my father still going down there to keep the memory, to keep it alive. And now so many of our children have no part of their consciousness of that one more bridge that we have to cross. Well, what exactly happened in Selma that we should never forget? After 1619 in Jamestown 400 years ago, when slavery became a part of the fabric of America, 1619 is the founding of Jamestown and the importation of Africans as slaves, human beings being owned by other human beings. Mind you, the country was not formally signed a declaration, any part of a constitution, until 1776. Almost 160 years of buying and selling our people. Where is this going? You got to understand, one more bridge we have to cross. So when Reverend Martin Luther King met with John Lewis and others, and they went back to Selma to cross that bridge, that is when the Voting Rights Act was implemented and signed in 1965. The end of slavery, the abolishment, is 1865. We had to fight another 100 years after the end of slavery to have the right to vote. That's Selma. That has everything to do with the Edmund Pettus Bridge. But let's not stop there. You've heard the name Edmund Pettus. Let us be clear, he's Senator Edmund Pettus. Let us be clear, he's also General Edmund Pettus. Let us be clear, he was a grand wizard in the Ku Klux Klan in the state of Alabama. General, Senator, Ku Klux Klansman, lawyer Edmund Pettus has a bridge named after him. The bridge was named after him 33 years after he died in the 1940s. This wasn't to pick him up to extol the virtues. This was to raise a flag of white supremacy, to have terror put back into the hearts of men and women. This is who General Edmund Pettus is. Grand Wizard, Ku Klux Klansman, going through Route 80, in the black belt of Alabama. What did Reverend Martin Luther King and John Lewis and the freedom fighters see in Dallas County, Alabama? They saw a county that was majority black 100 years after slavery had legally been abolished, 1865. In 1965, in March, we had 1% of blacks registered in Dallas County. 99% were white. There were all these schemes on voting that was on the books, legislated in, but regulated out. How does that happen? They tell you the voting's on Tuesday. But if you want to vote, you have to come down to the county office. There may be only one county office and you have to drive 30 miles. But when you get there, they say, as Reverend Daddy King, Martin Luther King's father, said, he went to register at the county and they told him, you cannot take the elevator. So he went towards the stairs, and the stairs said no Negroes allowed. Other blacks went down to the county to try to register the vote, and one of the judges said, name for me every judge in every county across the state of Alabama. Another judge would tell an African American, tell me how many bubbles are in a bar of soap. All of these schemes were put in, so we needed federal protection to gain the right to vote. Why is this so important? Because what our president is doing now, they've never forgotten the gains we've made. There is an assault, an attack that's very precise, that's undermining all the gains that we have made, brothers and sisters. He's not crazy. He's wily like a squirrel and a fox. Look at what he does, not what he says. He's undermining our right to vote. My father told me many years ago, he says, we were so excited when we learned we had the right to vote. He says, we jumped and we hit our heads on the ceiling. We saw all the progress and all of our hopes had been realized, only to realize we were so low. We were in the basement when we jumped. We hit our head on the ceiling from the basement. Then the fourth phase of our struggle that Reverend Martin Luther King planted my father here in Chicago to take on, after slavery, after Jim Crow and segregation, after gaining the right to vote, where are we now? We need to open up the vaults of prosperity and opportunity for all. We've got more bridges to cross, brothers and sisters. In Alabama, the Edmund Pettus Bridge is symbolic of the racial terrorism. Alabama was the leading state of lynching in the nation in the 1900s. So to see ministers get together, teenagers get together, to see comedians get together, to see white Methodist ministers like Reverend James Reed, to see white women like Viola come down to Mississippi and get our brains blown out and being told that she was a nigger lover. We cannot forget. God would not be happy. And the same threads of discrimination and racism that you heard about today on school funding and mortgages and access to capital and opportunities, they are still around with us today. GoFundMe should have a policy. You know, the financial website that you can make donations to. Either you're open to everyone, but you can't let a man that's accused of crimes have his GoFundMe page taken down and let a man that killed a Laquan McDonald have his GoFundMe page taken up. What are the rules? It's been 50 years since Shirley Chisholm became a congresswoman. It's been 50 years since man first walked on the moon. It's been 50 years of us trying to have racial progress, and now we've got a hog in the creek that's sitting up top, and everyone has to drink the water of the putrid language, of the violence that's being spewed, of a Mr. Meadows crying on television, talking about, don't call me that R word. I've got Negro boys and girls in my family. You're hurting my feelings. Will somebody tell him to man up? Ladies and gentlemen, the average median wealth of the African American household is 10% of that of the white household. Let us be clear on wealth versus income. Wealth is what you can pass on to your family. Income is the amount of capital you earn on an annual basis. The ball team owners that pays the checks for all of the athletes, they have wealth. That football team, basketball team, baseball team goes to their children. The Pittsburgh Steelers was bought as a game, as a toy for Mr. Rooney's great-grandson. It was a toy. The San Francisco 49ers, it was a gift to the DeBartolo children. The Ricketts family put the money up for their children to buy the Chicago Cubs. These are toys for very wealthy people. But if you take out Ray Carruthers in Baltimore for abuse, you better do something about the man in San Francisco that just hit his wife. We need one set of rules 50 years later. When we look at transit infrastructure, please do not reduce in Alabama Reverend Martin Luther King fighting the transit system to Rosa Parks sitting on a bus. Mrs. Rosa Parks was 42 years old. She was not an old, bent-over, decrepit woman. She was a woman in her height of strength and consciousness. She made an active choice and decision to fight segregation and the slaveocracy. She wanted to make sure that we could also drive the bus, that we could sell tires to the bus, that we could also manufacture the buses, that we could have access to transit routes that would connect us to the unconnected parts of our city. One of the greatest determinants of your access to social mobility is not your education. It's not simply your wealth. A greater predictor of your access and your uprising comes from your accessibility to transportation. When government policies are still going into place that are gerrymandering, going around our neighborhoods where we don't have places where you can pay and park and take the mass transit to downtown, when our connection buses don't connect in the city and the south suburbs, when we have 3 transit systems in the state of Illinois that aren't connected, a CTA, a Maze, a PACE, and we can't have one transfer to get to the county hospital, we've got a problem. When you close down schools that were next to mass transit lines, we have a problem. One more bridge to cross, ladies and gentlemen. It's been 50 years, and we're not going to forget the name of General Ku Klux Klansman Edmund Pettus. Why did they put his name on that bridge? You need to look at some of these names before you celebrate. Right here in Chicago, in Hyde Park, right down the block from here is Harper's Court. Look up Attorney Harper and see how he wrote the laws of segregation to keep black folks out and created the neighborhood watch so a Negro could not go to school. Look up the names of those putrid racists. Not that we should take them all down. We need to go in the positive, keep theirs up so we never forget who they are, and make sure we start erecting our own to celebrate the victories we've won. I'm excited. Right here in the state of Illinois, we're going to have 1 of 2 women to be the next mayor of this great city, the city of Chicago. We're going to go into detail in the weeks to come. We've got a bridge to cross right here in Chicago. Like that Edmund Pettus Bridge crosses the Alabama River, and the Alabama River comes straight up from Mobile all the way on up into Tennessee. That Alabama River, that was the heart of the production of cotton and the selling of African Americans. That same river were the last slave ship to have been known to have come into the United States in America. We were to have outlawed slavery in 1807 on the importation of Africans. They said it was a bet, it was a wager, where the gentleman came and went and got some more slaves. The last slave ship was the slave ship called Clotilda, that came into the port in Mobile, Alabama, and the blacks went into Africatown right there in Mobile. That's the bridge that crosses for the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That same bridge, well, right here in Chicago, we've got a Chicago River that separates a north side from a south side. Right here in Chicago, we've got a Chicago River that makes the life expectancy 20 years longer on the north side versus the south side. We've got a river that the next mayor has to cross to bring the entire city together.
Come on, put your hands together, everybody. Come on. Ooh, open doors that I cannot hear. Jesus will. Oh, yes, Jesus will. Who will make all my decisions for me? Jesus will, yeah, Jesus will. Come on. When I'm in trouble, He gives me a song. Come on, in the night season, in the night season. And how long? And all the day long. Come on, who makes me do right when I, come on, would do wrong? Jesus will. Yeah, Jesus. Come on. Oh, yeah. Everybody say, oh. Hey, come on, put your hands together. Jesus will. I know He will, 'cause He said He will. Oh, yeah. Come on. Jesus will. I know He will. He said He will. He'll fight my battle if I keep still. Come on. If I keep still. Oh, come on. Put your hands together. Oh, yeah. One more time. Everybody say, oh, yeah. Come on. Jesus will. Come on. I know He will, 'cause He said He will. Hallelujah. Hey. Oh, yeah, yeah. I know He will. He said He will. He'll fight my battle if I keep still. If I keep still. Jesus will. Come on, put your hands together.
I need everybody in here to put your hands together for that message we just received. Everybody. We literally just went to civil rights school with Professor Jonathan Jackson. Oh my God. I think every time I come here and listen to Jonathan, I just become more and more intrigued by the amount of knowledge that he pours out each and every time he has the opportunity. And I'm getting to the place, y'all, where, and this is just me, and I don't mind confessing it, I'm getting to the place that if Reverend's not here, the only voice I want to hear besides his is Jonathan's. It's just me. I see a couple of other folks saying, I made the mistake of inviting him to church annually, and now I get greeted by the members at the door who have started tuning in. We had about 30 folks that joined from my church, and now the members greet me at the door and they say, I heard your boy. And if I miss, then they tell me what he says. But that was probably one of the most profound pieces I've heard about the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And the story has to continue to be told, because it inspires young guys like this who are doing it every single day and continuing the legacy, man. And we just appreciate the analysis that keeps us at a place where we have to continue to fight. For the month of February, I started reading Dr. James Cone's work, Black Liberation, Black Power Theology. And I posted something on March the 1st because I thought it was so important for folks to know that we can post and do all we do during February, but February isn't the only Black History Month. That Black History Month is every month, every single month. We got history that spans the entire calendar. And the quote that I posted was really relating to how important it is and significant for us to continue to fight. And it's pushed that bursts within me the need for us to continue to fight every single day, 365, 24/7, that it's important for us to continue to fight every single day. And it's pushed that reminds me that Trump is not the worst president we've ever had. That there's some folks that we had to overcome before Trump ever got in office. And he's not the scariest figure in the world, that there's some that are even scarier than him. And I'm grateful for folks like Kim Jong-un, who has just recently helped this president to realize what it feels like to be used. That's a reality that is undeniable. And it's because of push that I have the ability to have an analysis as significant as I do. And so those of us who are here today, we want to help keep hope alive. That's what we want to do right now, is help to keep hope alive. You've heard me say it before whenever they ask the preacher to come and quote unquote raise the offering, that freedom ain't free. It costs money for us to have a liberated mind, a liberated heart, a liberated spirit, and for us to continue to fight the good fight. It costs money for us to do that. It costs money for us to have a place where we can gather and collect and have this kind of analysis. You do remember that this was not always the case, that there was a time in our history that if we were caught gathering together, we could get killed. Now we have the freedom to do it, we have the capacity to do it, and we don't always take the opportunity to do it. But this is our gathering place. This is the place that we call the Ark of Safety as it relates to our social justice struggle. And so I need y'all to help me keep hope alive today. Every time I come, I'm not giving less than $100. And so I'm planning to do the same today. And somebody has already decided to join us. I love this man. John Rogers isn't even present, but somehow he figured out a way to get his contributions to us. And so John Rogers has made a contribution of $2,500. Come on, he came by and left. He came, made his contribution and dropped it off. Wide Awake United Church of Christ, I love this. $100 from Wide Awake United Church of Christ. It's still coming. We haven't even asked yet, and it's still coming. This is Michael Alexander, $100. Some folks are already doing it. Listen, folks who are willing to join in with us with $100, why don't you stand to your feet? Why don't you, those of you who are here, if you're in our listening audience this morning and you want to join us, you can get on the Rainbow Push site and send your contribution of $100. $100 is a good place to start. I believe it's a nice round number, and it helps us to meet the bills real quick And so if there are others who are inclined to do so, we inspire you. There are so many that are benefiting far and wide, all across this nation, all across the globe, who listen in every week. Help us this week to keep hope alive. Send your $100. If you hear somebody said, I don't have cash, I don't have a check, but I've got something to give, we've got a swipe machine right here that makes it easy for you to make your contribution. Can you do that for me? Thank you. I just need a few other folks that are willing to do it. Just stand on your feet, bring it right where you are. Then there's some folks that can't do $100, but you have half of that and you're willing to do it. And if you're here, we invite you to come. You can meet us halfway. That's it. Just bring what you got. That's it. And then let me ask it this way, because so often this is what we try to do. We try to sustain involvement and engagement through membership. By show of hands, how many of you are members of PUSH? Look at those hands. That's fantastic. If you didn't raise your hand, it's easy to become a member of PUSH. If you're a senior, there's a senior discount to do it. If you're a student, I like to say it this way. It's the cost of a book. The cost of a book. And I promise you, you'll get more education from PUSH than you will from any textbook that you purchase this year. I promise you that's the case. So for the cost of a book, they have envelopes that you can just fill out, put your name on. Even if you don't have it today, you can get it later, you can pay later. But we would encourage you to become members of PUSH today. If you're not already a member, we would encourage you to do so. If I haven't called your offering figure, but you've got something to give, why don't you come forward and give it now? Whoever you are, wherever you are, come on, join us. Chicago Center for the Urban Life and Culture, another $40. Manchester University is here. Members of Manchester University, $60. Thank you. Thank you. Others who haven't had a chance, but you're willing to, come on now.
Oh, happy day.
I'm glad you're singing, because I can't sing.
Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. He washed my sins away.
Look, the PUSH Choir just gave $50, y'all, from the PUSH Choir.
Oh, happy day.
Thank you, PUSH Choir.
Oh, happy day. When Jesus was. When Jesus was. When Jesus
Come on, put your hands together.
When Jesus was. When Jesus was. He washed my sins away.
I said, put your hands together like it's a happy day.
Hey. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Hey, oh, happy day. Hey, it's a happy, happy, happy day. Oh, happy day now.
God bless you. We appreciate you. We're getting ready to go home. Everybody stand on your feet. Turn to the person to your left and right and tell them, I'm committed to working on our freedom. How about you? Grab a hand of somebody close to you, both sides.